Hi, everyone. Welcome to Workschool Talk again. Today, we have Karen with us, and Karen is a Senior Vice President with us today. So I'm going to allow Karen to introduce herself and give us some background. So let's get started.
Hi, good afternoon, Glenn. Again, this is Karen Bhatia, Senior Vice President at the New York City Economic Development Corporation. A lot of the work that we do in the city focuses on being what we consider the economic engine of New York. And I head up our group that's called Creative and Applied Tech. So I focus on ways in which we could support the various industries in New York, integrating technology to help them be at the cutting edge of innovation. I help support startups and entrepreneurs, particularly in tech and the creative sectors. And finally, we also help folks who are interested in job opportunities in technology and the creative sectors as well. And so all of our emphasis and focus is to make sure that there are good jobs with good salaries and upward trajectories for all New Yorkers, focusing on equity, particularly in technology and the fields that are growing when we're thinking about future of work. So pleased to be here with you all today, especially with Workschool and all the emphasis that you have on creating pathways for people into the tech field.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks again, and thanks for that brief introduction. We're excited because that's what we want for the city and for particularly a lot of the city, just to get involved in tech and learn how they can actually participate in doing tech. Thank you so much. So you want to prepare a slide for us? You have a prepared slide for us? You're going to talk us through. Please, yeah, welcome.
Wonderful. So I'm going to share my screen right now. So please bear with me. Okay, please let me know, Glenn, if you're able to see this. Are you able to see this, Glenn?
We can see the screen.
Wonderful. Okay, so just wanted to start off, as I mentioned, just to tell you as well as the overall viewership here about all the opportunities in tech and how it's growing in New York. So despite the past year's pandemic, record-breaking unemployment rates throughout the country as well as globally, it's really fascinating to see how tech is really at the forefront of a lot of the upward growth and the economic recovery. So we're seeing that despite what has happened with the pandemic, in New York, tech is hiring that we've had in February, just last month, the single best month in history for New York startup funding. So new companies in tech were able to raise $2.4 billion in New York City. You still have huge tech companies like Amazon, Google, and Facebook, as well as others that are still purchasing property as well as leasing property in New York, despite people working from home still. And people are talking about increasingly how New York City's tech future is bright and how these jobs are increasing. And so that's one of the big reasons why we're focusing on tech in New York City, is because it's the present as well as the future, not only in tech companies and growth of job opportunities in tech companies, but a really big emphasis is that tech is being integrated into all industries in New York, industries that New York City is known for. And I'll go into that a little bit more in a moment. So let's outline a little bit about the tech ecosystem in New York City. We have over 9,000 startups, and we have over 100 accelerators, incubators, and boot camps, co-working spaces. Last year, despite the pandemic, there was over $16 billion that were invested in startups, particularly in the form of venture capital funding. In New York, we have 65 Fortune 500 companies that are headquartered here, which is more than any other city in the world. And this is particularly important because a lot of these companies, these Fortune 500 companies, are the ones who end up being customers of tech products and services. And they also are the ones who are employing more and more tech workers internally. And I'll go into that again a little bit later. We have over 120 colleges and universities and organizations that are providing tech training. And in New York City, we have 355,000 tech jobs. And I'll explain what that is in a moment as well. We have 2.3 million New Yorkers with a bachelor's degree, and 1 million of them are in science and engineering. And in New York City, we're so proud that 410,000 women-owned businesses are housed here, and 50% of our tech workers are actually foreign-born. So some of the companies that you might be aware of that are tech companies that are based in New York are Peloton, WebMD, Blue Apron, Jet is in the vicinity in the tri-state area, Etsy, Vice, BuzzFeed, Warby Parker, just to name a few. In New York City, particularly the New York City Economic Development Corporation has been investing in development of the tech ecosystem for over a decade now. We've focused on incubators and accelerators such as Grand Central Tech, now called The Company, FutureWorks that focuses on advanced manufacturing, our New York City Blockchain Center, New Lab that also focuses on urban tech, our Cyber NYC program, as well as our lab, which focuses on virtual reality and augmented reality. So all of these programs have had an emphasis on supporting entrepreneurs and startups, providing them with resources. A lot of people are first-time entrepreneurs and need the know-how. They need mentors, advisors, oftentimes need access to capital and programs to help walk them through the entrepreneurship program. And in addition, a number of these also had associated workforce development programs, such as our Cyber NYC program, our Blockchain Center, as well as our Virtual Reality and Augmented Reality Center. So as I mentioned, tech is growing in New York, even despite the pandemic. You have big companies, which we consider oftentimes to be traditional tech companies like Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google, that have over 20,000 employees in New York, and about 1/10 of them have been actually added over the course of this past year. Google is also adding a significant number of more employees in New York. Facebook recently leased new office space this past year, tripling its workforce in New York. Apple is expanding its office in Midtown, and Google and Amazon are actually putting together campuses in New York City. And overall, Julie Samuels, who's the executive director of Tech NYC, is actually talking about how New York City is a place where tech companies have doubled down, including companies, as mentioned, Amazon and Facebook, as well as TikTok, and they've signed new leases in New York. Again, despite what everybody has been talking about over the course of this past year, and despite oftentimes concerns about remote work, space is really being doubled down by these tech companies, and this industry is growing tremendously. Now, I wanted to focus on this chart for a moment here because I wanted to explain what we mean by tech. So we've adopted the definition that HR&A Advisors uses, and this is a chart that was provided by them. Tech here, and when we're looking at tech jobs, and we're saying there are 355,000 jobs in New York City, we have this light blue section that talks about tech and non-tech. So when we're talking about tech jobs, we're talking about traditionally what you think about. We're thinking about programmers, developers, computer network specialists, data analysts. Those are the types of tech jobs that we're thinking about. When we're thinking about non-tech sectors, we're thinking about industries that New York City is home to. For example, fashion, banks and finance, insurance company, advertising companies, media companies, healthcare companies, real estate companies, ones that are not just focused on tech. So those are considered to be non-tech industries. When we're talking, so in this case, you're seeing tech and non-tech. So you're seeing those kind of programmers, developers, data analysts, computer network specialists. They're being hired tremendously in non-tech fields, such as fashion, such as finance and banking, et cetera. Now 46.2% of the tech workforce is actually employed in these types of industries. Second, when we're looking at the darker blue, and if you're looking at the 2018 numbers and we're looking at non-tech in tech, non-tech jobs are considered to be like customer specialists and marketers, people who are focused on HR. And those types of roles in tech companies, so thinking about the Googles, the Amazons, the Apples of the world, those types of functions are also growing tremendously. And as you can see, that's grown by 34% over the course of the past 5 years, which is tremendous growth. And you don't need a tech background in order to be in those roles, but you are in tech companies. So those other types of functions and roles are growing tremendously as well. Then finally, you have tech in tech, which is the brighter blue on top here. And that's what you would see as the programmers, the developers, the computer network specialists in tech industry roles, such as in the Googles, Amazon, Facebooks, et cetera, of the world. And those jobs are also growing. So you see that there are some that require technical expertise, and there's some roles that don't require it. And these are all the jobs that we're considering to be tech jobs, which is what we have here, tech in non-tech. So that would be like a computer programmer in a bank. That would be non-tech in tech. So for example, a customer service advisor who is at Google, or that would be tech in tech. So that would be, for example, somebody who's a data analyst who's at Amazon, for example. All of these three segments are growing, but I wanted to particularly highlight the second segment, which is non-tech in tech, that's growing tremendously as well. Next, I wanted to actually focus on salary. So regardless of if you have a tech background, so you're a computer programmer, a data analyst, or a computer network specialist, or if you are in fields that are not particularly tech intensive, like we mentioned, people who are in marketing, people who are in HR, people who develop content. If you are in the tech industry in New York, whether that is you're working at a tech company or you're working in a technical field at a non-tech company, all of that is considered to be part of the New York City tech ecosystem. I wanted to share this chart once again from HR&A Advisors in their most recent update about the New York City tech ecosystem to show the salary. On the left-hand side here, you have the New York City overall salary. The solid color on the left, which is $30.09, is the average salary, hourly salary of somebody who has a bachelor's degree in New York. This is the overall economy in New York City. And what you see on the right side of that, which is 20.70, is the hourly salary of somebody who has who does not have a bachelor's degree in New York. Now, I wanted to compare this with every other area to the right, the New York tech ecosystem as a whole, tech in tech, non-tech in tech. Across the board, you see whether you have a bachelor's degree or you do not have a bachelor's degree. In any of the tech fields to the right, you see that you're actually making a lot more if you are in a tech-related field than you would at the overall in the New York City economy as a whole. So if you don't have a bachelor's degree, if you're working in the New York City tech ecosystem, you're making about 80% more than you would be if you were working in just the general economy in some other kind of field in New York. So compared to $20, you're making $37 if you do not have a bachelor's degree. And so across the board, I wanted to use this to show you that regardless of if you have a bachelor's degree or you don't have a bachelor's degree, working in tech and being part of the tech workforce in New York actually gives you a larger salary and a significantly larger salary as well. I'm going to go into a little bit more of a deep dive here. And this is particularly focused on some of the tech roles that we're talking about. So developers, data and system analysts, as well as network specialists. These are considered to be high-tech jobs. And I wanted to point out here the median hourly range, which is what is we're trying to highlight from the page before. And that is, if you look at it, $55 an hour to $68 an hour, depending on your role, that's pretty significant compared to $30 or $20 an hour for the New York general economy as a whole. And on the right of this green square that you see here, this green rectangle, you see the percentage of people who actually hold a bachelor's degrees. And for network specialists, 46% of those job holders do not have a bachelor's degree. They have less than a bachelor's degree, and they're able to make $50 an hour. Now I wanted to focus on non-tech roles in tech companies, which is what increased by 34% over the course of the past 5 years in terms of the number of jobs. And here we have, as we mentioned, sales and customer service, marketing, HR, and those who are creating content as well. And these hourly wages compared to $20 an hour for people who don't have a bachelor's degree, or $30 an hour for people who do have a bachelor's degree. This is significantly higher as well. And on the right of this green rectangle, you see here how many, what is the percentage of job holders with a bachelor's degree. And so as you can see, for customer service and sales representatives, you have 61% of those in these fields who do not have a bachelor's degree. And this is pretty significant to see the opportunities for higher salaries, opportunities for job growth in fields within tech. And this slide over here is to actually show you not only the comparison of those with bachelor's degrees and those without bachelor's degrees. So the darker orange shows you the job posting requirements that is often put out there for developers, data system analysts, network specialists, etc. But the actual number of people who have that level of education, who have at least a bachelor's degree. And what I wanted to point out here is for people not to be swayed by job postings. When you see a number of these job postings that are actual tech roles, which is the higher graph here, you see 93 or 92% of these job postings indicate you need a bachelor's degree, but about 20% of them, or 20% less of the people who are actually in those roles do have a bachelor's degree. They either have on-the-job training or they've taken some sort of course to help them get into these fields, which are significant tech fields or high-tech jobs. The lower graph here shows, again, what the job posting indicates in terms of a requirement for a bachelor's degree in dark orange. But the light orange actually shows the percentage of people who actually do have a bachelor's degree. And for sales and customer service, only 39% of the workforce contains a bachelor's degree. And as you can see here, marketing, human resources, and creative content, at least 20% less of the workforce actually have a bachelor's degree. So I want folks to realize, even if you don't have that formal education, don't be dissuaded from actually applying to these jobs. The next I wanted to focus on is just the incredible talent and diversity that we have here in New York. And what we've been doing is focusing on, as a city, doubling down on our tech education. The city's made a commitment to double the number of computer science graduates from our CUNY schools. We've invested in a program called We Venture Fund to help support diverse entrepreneurs, particularly people of color and women, to help provide funding to their ventures. We've also helped facilitate access to tech training. We've done so by creating a tech training center that's being built in Union Square, and I'll go into that in a moment. We've had programs at Lehman College focusing on virtual reality and augmented reality, our full stack cyber boot camp, programs in partnership with LaGuardia Community College for tech training, as well as a number of the educational workshops we've done through the New York City Blockchain Center. As I mentioned, our tech training center, which is in the process of being built right now at Union Square. This is a picture of what it's going to look like, a centrally located building that's all tech, focusing on workforce development, startup development, all the types of resources that anybody in the city would want. It's going to have 16 classrooms, and it's a place where people could actually enter and be a beginner in tech and work through a number of courses and programs and resources in order to actually break through into this field. This is going to be opened, we're thinking Q4 of this year or Q1 of 2022. Now I wanted to focus on, aside from the tech jobs that are growing tremendously in New York, both in terms of numbers, in terms of salaries and opportunities, a number of New York City startup founders are based here in New York and have grown their companies here in New York. So we have Bhatia, who's from ClassPass, and a number of you have probably heard of it. They're valued at over $1 billion, and they focus on exercise classes throughout the city. You have here Sean Lin, who developed Zola, which is a wedding company, an online wedding company, and they're valued at $600 million. You have Jennifer Fleiss and Jennifer Hyman, who are co-founders of Rent the Runway, which has a yearly revenue of over $100 million and is valued at approximately $800 million. And you have folks like Robert Refkin, who's the founder of Compass, that recently began a filing for an IPO, and they were recently valued at over $6 billion after a funding round in 2019. I wanted to highlight here that folks who are thinking about tech can get into tech both as workers, but also as founders, as entrepreneurs. And we see the incredible diversity that we have here in New York, and tech is for everybody. We also look at some of the investors, and some of these, of course, have name recognition, but some of these folks, we actually don't realize what type of investors they have focused on. So, we all know Nas in terms of his rap music, but I don't think as many people know him for the incredible angel investor that he is. He developed Queensbridge Venture Partners and has made investments in over 150 companies. Most recently, one of the companies that he invested in, called PillPack, which is an online pharmacy, was acquired by Amazon for over $1 billion. We, of course, have Daymond John, that folks know from Shark Tank, grew up in Queens. He's also made significant investments in tech companies and entrepreneurs across the board. One of the reasons why I included him here is not only because he's from New York and has made a number of tech investments, but he started FUBU, right? And when you think about FUBU, the fashion company, you don't think of it as being a tech company. But this is where I wanted to emphasize that when we were talking about the tech industry and we think about the Googles, the Apples of the world, every single business now is a tech business. A fashion business needs to think about e-commerce and selling online and integrating technology into their back-end operations. So we mentioned banks are tech companies now, thinking about data analytics and customer service and having apps and online platforms. You name it, across the board, healthcare companies, telemedicine. We think about education, and we think about all the remote work and learning that students are doing right now. Every single industry is integrating technology, and now every single industry is becoming a tech company, including fashion, cosmetics. All of them are selling online, using virtual reality and augmented reality to experiment with these products and try on these products. So this field is growing like crazy. And so that's why I also wanted to include FUBU here, because all the investments that Daymond John has made in tech companies, but also every other company is also a tech company now. Also, Gabby Munoz, who is the managing director of Hearst Ventures, which has invested over $1 billion to date, as well as I wanted to highlight here Harlem Capital. And you have this stellar team that has created this venture capital fund, and it also embraces the tremendous diversity and talent that we have here in New York who are investing in entrepreneurs. Lastly, I wanted to provide a number of resources for those who are interested in tech in New York City. We have a site that's operated by Small Business Services. It's the first site that we have here, which is our New York City Tech Training. There are a number of programs that they have, include a data analyst training program, as well as a web development training program. Secondly, in the bullet here, you see a beginner's guide to free and low-cost tech courses in New York City. This was developed by our Women.NYC program and director and executive director, but this is open to everybody, and it actually has a lot of descriptions that are incredibly helpful for a beginner. A caveat is that it was last updated this past spring, so some of it might need some adjustment, but the majority of the information is still up to date. Next, we have our site called digital.nyc. That's going to be relaunching soon, but that's going to include all information about tech resources for entrepreneurs, for investors, for those who are seeking jobs. I wanted to highlight Ability Cisco Academy, which is primarily targeting veterans as well as those with disabilities who are interested in getting tech certifications, particularly from Cisco. We have our cybersecurity bootcamp that I mentioned before, which is in partnership with Full Stack Academy, as well as our life science internships, which is another program that we operate in-house. So these are some of the resources that are affiliated with the city, but there are a tremendous number of other resources that are out there, such as Pursuit, Perscolis. You also have Google has their Grow with Google program, as well as their internship program. There are so many of these throughout the city, full stack, General Assembly. There are a number of different programs that exist throughout the city to help support those who are interested in getting tech jobs. And like I said, I just touched the surface about the number of incredible entrepreneurs that we have here in New York who are focused on tech, and the number of incredible investors that we have who are focused on investing in our incredible diverse talent that we have here in New York City as well. I will leave this now and stop sharing my screen. So we
Karen, please leave the screen, Karen,
Okay.
so that we can talk about this a bit. Thank you
Okay.
so much. This was pretty extensive, and I hope our audience basically get a chance to really review this. But I want to dive deeper into a few of the slides that you have presented. The first one is the accelerator. I think that was slide 2. Is there a way we can get access to or find out where those I think, if I remember right, I just took note of it. Where can we find all those accelerators? Where can our viewers find 100 accelerators? I think that the next slide down.
Yes, this one here with the Grand Central Tech, FutureWorks, etc.
Right, and the one before that, that lists the 100s, right? So you have 100 accelerator incubators,
yes.
bootcamp. Is there some where we can find the name of all these in New York? I think that would be great for our viewers.
Absolutely. So the ones that are on the following page that indicate here Grand Central Tech, FutureWorks, etc., they can go onto our website, our edc.nyc website, and see the accelerators and incubators that the New York City Economic Development Corporation has put together and strategized around. And then going back, I'm going to go back to the site here, which is where I listed out the resources. And on digital.nyc, you'll have a huge list of the number of accelerators and incubators. So this third bullet down, where you see we currently have a website for all things tech, digital.nyc. If you go onto that website itself, there's a link that links to our incubators and accelerators in New York.
Okay, now, great.
Yeah. That I did want to mention is that we're in the process of revamping the site. So even though you can get this information now, stay tuned, because this summer it's going to be new and improved, and we'll have even better information and a better UX, so that folks will be able to enjoy that experience a lot more. But digital.nyc will also have that information. And as I mentioned, for the ones that we run, you can go onto edc.nyc.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So we make sure that our viewers can see that. Ironically, it is one of the reasons for Workschool was primarily to figure out how do we give our viewers this end-to-end relationship, organizing around education and career and your career path. That was our goal. So I'm happy to see that we're talking about jobs today, because that's one of our emphasis in trying to tell our viewers, here's how the education that you're getting can actually lead to jobs, and you're where the jobs are as we begin to build out our job portal on Workschool. So I think one of the things that we might do, Karen, is to probably aggregate all of these resources that you're doing on our platform, so users can come to our platform and see a one-stop shop of all of these resources that exist in New York City. So that's very, very wonderful. And thank you so much for putting this together. So we'll basically put this on our website so students can come to our website. One of the fundamental things that we are learning is how many people are not aware of some of these basic necessities that they can actually utilize and learn about technology and how to understand technology. So we have actually, on our platform to date, we have actually listed over 1,500 courses, and we just basically list around 20 or 30 courses from Google. So on our platform, most people didn't know that these courses existed. And now we put these courses in our platforms, and they're free. So these courses are free. So anyone can come to our platform and go there and take these courses from Google. So we'd actually try to probably reach out to Cisco Academy and see if we can get these courses on our platform as well. so it makes it easier for people to come to. Because that was our goal. We found that a lot of the pain point that users were telling us was basically there are all these courses and these resources out there, but we don't know how to find them. We have to go to all these different places. And we started brainstorming around what the solution could look like. And then it just triggered to us, why don't we become the Netflix of education? Yeah. So that's what we developed. We just aggregate all the content of education in our platform. So people can just come there. So we're going to try to probably get some of these wonderful sites that you have presented, the Cisco Academy, to see if we can have some of these courses in our platform. So users can just come to this one site and get the courses. We have done that with Google. We have done the same thing with Y Combinator. We have put all their courses in our platform. And we want to do the same thing for jobs. We want to do the same thing for jobs. Have all these jobs all over the universe and on our platform, so users can just come there and just find jobs and just relate the jobs. And employers on their end can also come there and put their jobs for these job seekers. So I appreciate this a lot, and we're very excited that the city is doing this, because we need to solve this problem around this massive unemployment that exists in the city. So I'm very, very excited about that. The next thing I would like to talk to our users about, and you shared that, was the resources for venture funding, basically. And I'm happy to see that you put up the Harlem Capital Partners, because these guys are very dear to me. Harlem Capital Partners. I met them, several years ago when I ran the Harlem Tech Summit, and they were some of the speakers, including John Henry, who's unfortunately not in this picture. And they all came to and spoke at the Harlem Tech Summit. To see this growth factor that they've presented now, that they're now this diverse venture, is very, very exciting, because we need a lot of that. In particular, that I think we just started thinking about venture funding for our company. We have met with a few investors, and last night we were saying to ourselves, it's really funny that we haven't spoken to any Black our minority investor since we started. And we just really started because we decided we were going to bootstrap this, basically. But we want to be very, very deliberate and conscious about that we widen the framework of what we talk to in terms of venture funding. So again, very excited to see that you're putting these things together and just letting people know that now these resources are out there for people to reach out and find investments and learn about investment. I think again, just to mention Harlem Capital Partners, they do a good job in terms of having these resources for people who want to find internships and learn about venture funding, so that they can go on to become venture capitalists in the future. So they've done an exceptional job in terms of continuing to do that. So I'm happy. I'll try to get them on the show to talk more about that, just to talk about how they're going through this process. So I really want to thank you so much for doing this, and have our users just getting and their viewers just getting an opportunity to take a look at this. And we will share this slide as well with all of our viewers. If any of our viewers want to reach you or to get more, what are your contact information?
Yes.
Primarily?
So we have our team. They can reach out to us at techinfo@edc.nyc. That's the best way to get in touch with us.
Okay. Wonderful.
I also did want to mention, Glenn, in regards to what you had just mentioned about investors and thinking about how entrepreneurs expand the scope of investors that you reach out to. That's precisely, my main goal here in talking to the viewers about tech in New York is really to talk about, this is the future, this is the present and the future of work, essentially. And this is also the future of thinking about wealth generation and thinking about equity in New York. And I mean that in from the perspective of how do we make sure that all of us in New York have opportunities. And the reason why I focused on tech jobs, because of course that's a gateway and an entryway. And it's not just for somebody who has a PhD or a master's degree or even a bachelor's degree. These are jobs that are open for people across the board. There are opportunities where they can get training to get into tech roles. There are opportunities for them to have non-tech roles in tech companies as well. There's just a plethora of opportunities that are out there, number one. But I also wanted to stress that folks, when we're thinking about tech, they also have opportunities to be investors, to make, kind of foundational investments and scaling growth investments into entrepreneurs who are creating the next set of products and services that are going to transform our world. And it's important to have diverse entrepreneurs, and incredibly important to have diverse investors. We've seen across the board that the greater diversity that you have in investors, in VC funds and in angel funds, they're able to understand the wealth of opportunities that come from products and services that traditionally haven't been invested in. There's just a greater diversity of new types of opportunities that they're able to help develop. And so, that kind of greater diversity in investors, as well as when we're thinking about the greater diversity in startup founders, that's incredibly important for our future. And so I wanted to very much underscore that folks that are listening to this can be part of the tech workforce. They can be the next entrepreneurs. They can be the next set of investors. And what we're trying to do at EDC is to help support that workforce development in tech, help support resources for incubators, accelerators, mentors for our founders, and also to help diversify the investor landscape. And right now, we've developed a strategy around ensuring that there's greater diversity in investors itself, by trying to get data on the diversity in VC funds. Secondly, to create a pipeline of workforce into venture capital funds, particularly in the mid-level stages, so that we're investing in people from a variety of different backgrounds who you don't ordinarily see as investors, but they're able to ultimately get the training and the opportunities to be the decision makers. And the third prong of our strategy is to focus on programs, incubators, and accelerators, like essentially the Y Combinator, the stellar resources that are out there, but making sure that these opportunities are open to all people and the diversity that we have in New York. So having a top-notch fellowship program, founder fellowship program, that welcomes and provides supports to all New Yorkers to help them get the resources to start and scale their businesses. So we're very much focused on how do we tackle all aspects of tech so that everybody has these opportunities across the board as a worker, as an entrepreneur, and as an investor.
Thank you. I think I mentioned to you prior to us starting this the live streaming that basically I'm teaching a class in entrepreneurship at City College, and I mentioned Y Combinator to my students, and I was very surprised, and there was a guest speaker there that no one in the class knew what Y Combinator was, and they want to be entrepreneurs. So I think it is essential for us to really just bring this to this ecosystem so they can understand and learn from that, primarily that these things exist. And again, one of the reasons for us at Workschool deciding that we were going to put all the Y Combinator courses on our platform so that people who are not necessarily particularly familiar with San Francisco and Silicon Valley and all these places can just come to a platform that basically built by minority founders and feel that they're welcome to this platform. And so that's it. So again, thank you very much for doing this, and we are excited that you decided to come on Workschool and talk about this and share this with our viewers and all the viewers out there. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, and thank you for doing what you are. And just again, keep your eyes open for the next few months as we're relaunching digital.nyc, because we want to make sure that it's like a one-stop shop for all things tech that will help provide resources for anybody who's interested in getting into the tech field, as well as getting more resources if they're already in the tech field, to be able to connect with each other and really build out whatever it is that they're trying to develop, whether it's a business, whether it's their own investment practice, or whether it's to get a job in tech. So check out digital.nyc in the next few months as it relaunches, and check out what we do at edc.nyc, as well as the incredible work that you're doing, Glenn.
Thank you. We will actually post all of that on our platform. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank the viewers for watching us today, and we are very excited to share more with you. Thanks. Have a wonderful day, everyone.